My administration is poised to advance the state through the MORE agenda, which stands for meaningful development, opportunities for all, realistic reforms, and enhanced peace and security. These were the words and promise of the Delta State Governor, Right Honorable Elder Sheriff OBOREVWORI, as he takes over the reign of leadership as the 5th elected governor of the Big Heart Delta State. As the longest serving Speaker of the House of Assembly in Delta State, many are of the belief that he is no minor to the challenges of the state and not a newcomer to the runnings of government. According to the governor, during his inaugural speech, where he highlighted some major stands his administration will do. He said he represents consolidation and advancement. Consolidation because he's continuing from when the previous government stopped, and advancement because he is advancing Delta State to a greater height in exclusive economic growth, human capital development, infrastructure, renewable, and peace and security. But the big question and the big story for today is how can these be achieved? And his inaugural speech, a clear reflection of his administration blueprint. Well, you look at these and more as it concerns advancing the MORE agenda of this administration in Delta State, and more of an agenda setting is what this edition of the big story is all about. And there's a high point of the inaugural speech of the Delta State Governor, Right Honorable Sheriff OBOREVWORI. That's what we're having as a major discourse today on the big story. In our continuation, remember yesterday we took a critical look at the high points of the inaugural speech of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but it's only right and respectful we also do similar to that of the Governor of Delta State, and we're talking of no other person but Right Honorable Elder Sheriff OBOREVWORI. And joining me in the studio right here to talk about this is Mr. Voke Igoroje, is his senior special assistant, or was the senior special assistant to the former governor, former senior special assistant to the former governor of Delta State on external relationship and a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party. Good morning and welcome to the show. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, viewers. Happy to be here.
Now, I just really want us to go straight to it. Now, Governor Sheriff OBOREVWORI started in his inaugural speech by accepting with humility the responsibility which the good people of Delta State has in every way put upon him. And he concluded in praying for wisdom to lead and the divine enablement to achieve the goal that he has set for his administration. But for you, knowing you were there live when he had that inaugural speech, I'll just quickly want to say, what for you will be the high point of his very speech, before we dive into some of the major points?
Thank you very much. Great opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
For me, it was a dream come true.
Okay.
Now, a dream come true in the sense that we knew that it was going to happen. And the MORE agenda, which has taken a very interesting plane, was shown vividly in terms of his outlook, in terms of his approach, and in terms of his delivery style. So, like you said, he started by first accepting this huge responsibility that Deltans placed on him when they overwhelmingly voted for him on the 18th of March. And now he has come to say, yes, I am ready to serve. And again, looking at his background, he comes with a rich experience. And that was what he said when he said, as a former lawmaker and the longest serving speaker, he comes with one critical experience in terms of setting the priorities of government. All right? Not just setting the priorities of government, but the ability to communicate. All right? The goals and the policies, programs of government, and then partnering with the executive in the implementation of these goals. Now, that makes it so unique because there's no way when you describe democracy without the legislature. Okay, so he comes from the legislature with a rich background. Don't also forget that he was the deputy chair of the Conference of Speakers. All right, so he comes with a rich background, both state and national, and both having worked before as aide to former governor Iweto Odwa, His Excellency Iweto Odwa, and former governor James Onanife-Ibori. He comes with experience in that regard, and now a rich experience, having been the longest serving speaker. And don't forget, Delta House of Assembly is not a place for joke.
Okay.
All right, so that is why you hardly see speakers that have lasted over 2-3 years.
So all you're saying is he's coming with a rich brand of experience.
Excellent,
when it comes to governance.
Okay,
now I want us now to come to his speech,
right,
and what it entails.
That's right.
And more like laying out what his administration intends to do.
Yes.
And topmost in his drive is that he said is to foster sustainable economic growth,
exactly,
and private sector job creation.
Yes.
And many has over the years faulted business going to neighboring states,
yes,
of Rivers and also Edo State.
Yes.
And some even liken Delta to more like a civil service state,
yes,
over the years.
Yes.
And largely due to the relocation of major oil and gas companies, yeah, away from the state.
Yeah.
So can he achieve this,
yeah,
of changing Delta, because that's what he means in taking Delta from more like a civil service state to more of a business hub that will bring in private run establishment. So my question is, many will say, well, anyway, it's easy to say it, but how achievable it is?
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Now,
do you see him doing this, and how,
yes,
would he do it?
Okay, now I see him doing this because don't forget the outgoing governor,
yes,
has laid a solid foundation in terms of some profile infrastructure. All right. Now he's coming with the more agenda. Now, what is the more agenda? Like you read that in your opening statement: meaningful development. All right. Opportunities for all, realistic reform, and enhanced peace and security. So what does this mean? Because of his background, having worked with the executive in trying to understand the movement and the growth of the state, he knows what the executive wants.
Okay.
Okay, as a lawmaker. So now he has seen it. He has seen it, and now he's now in the driver's seat. Okay. So I think that, and again, the more agenda moves away from the Okowa's administration. Now he's bringing in the private sector.
Okay.
Governor Okowa has been given that excellent grade of creating jobs, massive job creation through the different wealth creation schemes. Now, from the statement of our governor, it shows that he's bringing in private sector jobs. All right, so it's not going to be government creating jobs now, but collaboration with private sector. That is why he said he's going to utilize the public-private sector participation. So I think it's doable. Don't forget that Delta State originally was not a civil service state in that regard. You have a hub of oil production and all that. So it was the activities of some of these community associations, so-called youth and all that. Yes, that. So now all you need to do is to set the priorities right. Okay, you set the priorities right. You have a blueprint on how you want to invite and entice investors back to your state. And also don't forget, he made reference to the export economic zone, the cocoa and the Kwale.
I'm really coming there because, like you said, he talked about, he really expressed delight.
That's right.
With the recent approval of the Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority for cocoa and Kwale. And said the project was definitely to unleash the growth potentials of the state, with the board already in place, which he said he will take steps to ensure it will fully be operational to attract investors, like you are saying, to the zone. But two quick questions on that. Thank God you raised it up. So two quick questions. Now, do you see this totally revolutionizing the economic base of the state? That's number one. And how? And will opening of the ports, we're talking about the Warri port, it has been there moribund for many years. Will the opening of the ports and others also not be also beneficial to the state, even as they advance to see how we will gain in on the export processing zone. Would that not have also been a better way to also look at it?
Yes, I understand clearly. There are some things that we cannot say on air.
Okay.
In terms of the inner workings of government, in terms of the priority areas of government, in terms of economic growth and development.
Yes.
But I can assure you that the governor, His Excellency Right Honorable Sheriff OBOREVWORI, he's very well aware of the importance of not just the Warri ports, but also the Sapele ports and the Burutu ports.
Okay.
And that these are drivers of economic growth. He's fully aware of that. All right.
Yeah.
Now, the difference with the export processing zone is that there are incentives that companies get when they are in the export processing zone.
Incentives, you say?
Yes, incentives in terms of reduced tax, in terms of payment of different levies. Once you're operating, that is why it is called a free export zone. Once you're operating within that space, there are a lot of opportunities for you, and that is why those things are like catalysts for growth, catalysts for industrialization. So we are happy that we're having this in Delta now. Like he said, the board is already in place.
Yes.
All that it needs to be done is to catalyze the operations of these to get them running and ability to bring in investors into the zone. So I think it's credible. I wanted to say this. Delta is not, like I was saying, not an originally civil service state. All right, we've got companies, we've got a lot of activities. We have competitive advantage in terms of agriculture. We have advantage in terms of oil and gas. We have advantage in terms of maritime. So these are the critical areas that any industrial base would naturally rely on. Okay, don't forget that the gas company here is the one that supplies gas to major companies in Nigeria.
Yes.
Why not we get it here? So, I mean, we are already primed for growth. Okay? So, I do not think that a government of Sheriff who has both the experience and the political will to succeed will have issues in trying to mobilize both the human and material resources in order to achieve his more agenda.
Okay, now we're still talking about it because I'll bring you back to what I asked also as a pointer to this very question. And I talked about, he plans opening, or rather is already even in place, in Koko and Kwale, a free exports processing zone.
Yeah.
But what good would it be if we do not have the ports that will be there to export most of these products? So how really, I do know the Warri port is basically for the federal government, that we do know as a team of exports and all of that. But how really feasible is it for us to have an export processing zone without having even full understanding and working of the Warri port? Because you would agree that if that also comes into being, it's not going to only transform and change the economic base of the state, but would also help that export processing free zone in Koko and Kwale to work. So really, how also important is it that this administration in Delta State takes that full charge in ensuring that the Warri port comes into life?
Now, the governor said that there are a whole lot of infrastructural development that's going to take place in terms of physical infrastructure and facelift of the Warri area. All right,
that is what he said.
Yes, and also the previous administration has established the Warri Uwie and Environs Development Agency. Okay, so now, because the fact you didn't see it stated in his speech that the Warri port is a priority, doesn't mean that it is not a priority for the government. Because the government understands clearly that there is no way industrialization can peak without the assistance and the importance of the ports.
Of course.
And like I said, for us in Delta, we have comparative advantage in terms of we have the Warri ports, we have the Burutu that is on, we have the Sapele port, and there is also a port in Koko. You remember that? So
which is close to the
to the free export zone. So like I said again, this shows that Delta State is prime for growth. All right, we have the infrastructure in place, and if you look at his statement, he was consistent in mentioning infrastructural renewal. All right. So, but in paragraph 6, which you read, in fostering sustainable economic growth, He said he will build enabling infrastructure. So he's going to build infrastructure and he's going to renew existing infrastructure. Now, the port is under the exclusive zone.
Yes.
All right? So there is a level,
nothing he can really
do
in control
no, there's a
that.
lot he can do in terms of facilitation, in terms of lobby, and in terms of getting the federal government to do the right thing in enhancing the capacity of not just the Warri port alone, but both the Sapele port, the Burutu port, and also the Cocoa port. So I think everything is going to be fine. He understands the challenges. He said it in his statement. He understands the challenges. It's going to be tough. Choices are going to be made, but he's prepared with the support of you and I and Deltans to get the more agenda on. Okay,
now I still want us to remain there because I'm really critical and really more concerned and curious about his economic blueprint as it concerns the economy. Now, he during his speech, he talked again of pushing the economic growth through agriculture.
That's right.
Yeah, where he said his administration will spare no effort to ensure that the development of more like getting not just only that, but the agriculture base going.
Yes.
And he also talked about opening some agro zones.
That's right.
in most of the local governments in Delta State. But also you would agree with me that agriculture indeed is a very big and major dealings of Delta State persons. And that's for certain. But my question is, apart from looking at that of putting some agro zones that will help to facilitate and also push forward with what he plans to do, I'm only a bit curious. Do you see these as indeed a major one as it concerns unemployment, like he said, that will help to deal with the issue of unemployment? That's number one. And number two, would it also not be right and nice for his administration to also think towards the way the federal government is in the issue of commodity control? Because you agree with me, now the mining Delta State seems to be a food hub. Food prices or foodstuffs are very expensive in the States. They are one of the most expensive in the country. So is it not just only about thinking of putting those zones there? Should he not also think towards the issue of also commodity control like the federal government?
Well, I would say first things first. All right. Now he has said in his statement that he will improve on agriculture and the value chain. That is the key. All right. Now, if we improve on the value chain, we are then able to, that means that there's going to be a lot of processing of raw agricultural products. Okay? Let me give you an instance. Maybe this is not, I am a farmer, okay? I have a farm. I have a palm farm. And when we started the farm, my workers told me that let us put cassava. So that we could sell the cassava. But after planting cassava and when it was time for harvest, the price they gave to us was crazy. All right? To the farm gate just to buy cassava tubers. So I looked at my people and we looked around. We said, no, let us not behave like Nigeria. That we will sell cassava and go and buy gari. So we decided to convert our cassava tubers to gari, to starch, and other things that we were able to do. And we made more money instead of just selling. So I think that is the approach that he's bringing to agriculture. He's not going to just focus on empowering farmers this time now, but he's also going to focus on strengthening the value chain so that you have different layers of intervention, both at the level of processing the raw materials to semi-processed food and then to final processed food. Now, what will this do? This will, one, increase the base for the farmers. All right? There will be a lot of off-takers for their raw materials. Two, this will again increase wealth creation in the state in terms of hubs of different value chain and entrepreneurs. And again, this will also increase food security, which will answer the second question. How do we control price? Okay, now we run a free market economy under the Nigerian states, all right?
Constitution.
So, yes. So now, I think that fixing prices is not the best way to go. The best way to go is to make the food and the crops available. The availability of it will naturally reduce price. Just like what we're experiencing in the oil and gas sector right now with the announcement of removal of subsidies.
Yeah, because that's even why I asked you this question. When it was immediately announced in Abuja, one of the first states that added the increase was Delta State.
Yes.
It has always been like that. So it shows that there's little or no government interference when it comes to the control of prices.
That's right.
So should we let this continue? Should the administration on this account let Deltans to suffer if he does not come into and deal with the issue of pricing?
I think we need to have a critical conversation on this, because you cannot appropriate and repropriate at the same time. Once you encourage entrepreneurs, you encourage the free market space, which is free entry and free exit, and prices will naturally respond to the force of demand and supply. Okay. But when you begin to attempt to fix prices, you're trying to then interfere in the free movement of goods and services and the price regime. I think that what we're witnessing right now in the oil and gas, it's going to be temporary.
Okay.
All right. It's going to be temporary, but also we need to have a conversation also with our entrepreneurs and businessmen. Yeah. Is this the right way to go? Because they will not tell us that the stock they have in their stations automatically increase in terms of price. Yeah. So this is just profiting from a chaotic situation and putting the masses at their how do you say it now?
They are messy.
That they are messy. So that is not right. That is not a good policy. The government, like we said, ought to have thought about all this before announcing it. But in any case, subsidy was going to go anyway.
Yes, it was. And then almost all the three presidential aspirants talked about removal.
It doesn't make sense.
But anyways, let's not go there, because
exactly.
And we'll now just dive into something else. But I'll plead with you to hold on. We need to go on a break now. But when we come back, we'll continue our discussion as we look at the critical high points of an order, but the fifth democratically elected governor of Delta State, and we're talking of no other person but Right Honorable Elder Sheriff OBOREVWORI. Let's go on a break.